The poem in the fascicule by Robert Herrick, To the Virgins to Make Much of Time, is really a very simple piece compared to most of the others in the fascicule, really. But there's nothing wrong with simple. It's a direct poem. It's a poem that contains a number of beautiful images, and it's useful for studying certain metrical features of English verse. If you haven't already done so, in the recording that accompanies the review sheet on poetry, you have a reading of this poem in connection with line length, okay? Because we have here a poem that alternates between iambic tetrameter and iambic trimeter, right? 4 feet in the first line and the third line, 3 feet in the second line and the fourth line. So that difference in line length gives us the impression of an acceleration in the second and fourth verses of each stanza. And that acceleration goes with the main theme of the poem, which is the passage of time, right? We evoke youth, we evoke images of a more permanent, seemingly lasting state in the longer lines. And then the shorter, the 3-foot lines, are the lines that give the images of time passing, right? The acceleration as youth turns into middle age and old age. The rhyme scheme here, very regular also. A, B, A, B, right? We have alternate rhymes, and the alternate rhymes that go all the way through. And the alternate rhymes are all perfect rhymes. Okay, so we have a very simple, very stable rhyme scheme here. Maybe one other thing to say about the rhymes. If you notice in the first 3 stanzas, the second and fourth verses are rhymed around either a progressive, right, a continuous state, of flying, dying, getting, setting, right, continuous or progressive state. And in the third stanza, we have rhymes that are constructed around a comparison. So the rhymes themselves emphasize this idea of movement, right? Comparison, we're moving from one thing to the other, one state to the other. And then obviously the progressive flying, dying, getting, setting, we're emphasizing a process via the rhymes. And then in the fourth stanza, we break with that pattern to establish the contrast between the two choices that the young woman can make, marrying or forever tarrying. Okay, so we have here a poem which is very neat, almost too neat in some ways, rigorously constructed around these alternating 4-foot and 3-foot lines, very stable iambic pentameter meter throughout, very stable rhyme scheme, A, B, A, B, C, D, C, D, and so on, alternate rhyme throughout. All of the rhymes are perfect, and for the first 3 stanzas, we have the second and fourth lines of the stanza rhyming in a way that emphasizes movement or progress. All right, once we've said that, we've basically covered everything there is to say about this poem. So I'll simply read through it and then pause for a moment to emphasize a few of the key images that bring us to that final choice that the young woman has to make. Gather ye rosebuds while ye may, old time is still a-flying, and this same flower that smiles today, tomorrow will be dying. The glorious lamp of heaven, the sun, the higher he's a-getting, the sooner will his race be run, and nearer he's to setting. That age is best which is the first, when youth and blood are warmer. But being spent, the worse and worst times still succeed the former. Then be not coy, but use your time, and while ye may go marry, for having lost but once your prime, you may forever tarry. Okay, so the theme here is as simple as the form of the poem. Theme is a carpe diem, right? To seize the day, to seize youth, to use your youth, right? If we look at the first line of the fourth stanza, use your time, make use of your youth by marrying, because if you don't seize the moment of your youth, then middle age and old age will come quickly, and you will forever tarry. That is to say, you will never marry, you will become an old maid. So the title of the poem indicates who the poet is addressing. We have a man addressing young women, urging them to marry while they are young, because once they lose their youth, they may forever remain single. Okay, so we're in the logic of the time, obviously. Seizing the day, making use of one's youth is associated with the role of the woman in the couple, right? To marry while she is young, to take advantage of her youth. Otherwise, we simply have a series of images here which evoke the cycle of the seasons and the cycle of the day. Okay, so in the first stanza, the flower that blooms in the spring, the first line evokes the spring. The fourth line, the flower is dying, the end of the season. So we evoke time through the cycle of the seasons in the first stanza. In the second stanza, we evoke the passage of time by the image of the day, right? The lamp of heaven, the sun moving across the sky. So the higher the sun gets to noon, we're coming to the end of youth. And then once the sun starts to decline in the sky, once the sun starts to move towards the point where it will set, then it seems as though time speeds up, right? The day seems to accelerate as it moves towards evening. Okay, so the path of the sun across the sky compared to the course of a person's life. Third stanza, we simply compare youth to old age, right? The best age is the first, and the ages that succeed are inferior to the first. And then the fourth stanza, the word there that you might need to look up, coy, right? Don't be shy, right? Don't be shy. Don't avoid courtship. Embrace the attention that you get while you're young, because once you lose your prime, once you lose your youth, you may forever tarry, that is to say, to remain, to have to wait, to keep waiting, to remain after the other young women have chosen to marry. Okay, so a poem that's about as simple as you get in terms of imagery, in terms of its theme, a classic theme, especially for this period, the 16th, late 16th, early 17th century, is Herrick states, as you see, 1591 to 1674. So one generation after Shakespeare, very traditional meter, traditional rhyme scheme, and a very common theme for the poetry of this period.